Nor, Dan Freya from the Community Development Corporation of Sault Ste. Marie and area. And you may have seen an announcement recently with some new funding that was announced for both FedNor and the CDC. So Pam and Dan are going to provide an update related to those funding programs. Nevin Bukonjic from our Economic Development team is going to give an update on the Canada Emergency Business Account and other funding programs. We also have Jonathan Coleman with us today. We'll be launching very shortly our second business survey. So we want to talk a bit about that and the importance of getting people to complete that. And we have other stakeholders in the community that are online that can provide updates from their organizations. So without further ado, maybe we'll get going here this morning. And first off, I'm going to pass it over to Pam McRae from FedNor. Just a reminder for folks, I think everybody's familiar now with the web conferencing technology, but please mute your microphones when you're not speaking. And if you are dialing into the call, it is *6 to both mute and unmute your phone. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pam. Pam, would you be able to unmute and speak to us on the funding program?
Yes, you can hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can. Perfect. Thanks, Pam.
Okay. Hi, Pam McRae from FedNor. I'm a project officer in the Sault Ste. Marie office. And I'm going to talk about this Regional Relief and Recovery Fund that was announced last week by the Government of Canada. There are two streams, one administered by the Community Futures Network, and I'll let Dan talk to that stream, and one administered in Northern Ontario by FedNor. So this morning, I'm just going to outline the FedNor criteria for this fund, sort of in a nutshell. There's a lot of nuances to it, so I would recommend if you are interested or feel that you're eligible, that you look on FedNor's website and go through the application guide for the particulars of this. Anyway, the objective of the fund is to support vulnerable businesses and eligible not-for-profit organizations that are impacted by COVID-19. I'm just going to focus on the parameters of the fund for private sector businesses right now to not confuse the matter. So FedNor is offering a repayable loan for a maximum of $250,000 at 100% of eligible costs. So there's no contribution from the applicant. If you borrow $40,000 or less, you may be eligible for forgiveness of 25% of the loan. The funds must be directly related to assisting your business stay solvent over a period of 6 months from March 15, 2020 to September 15, 2020. So in essence, you'll be reimbursed for the costs you incurred during that period. This funding is not for new projects, expansions, a relocation, or adding new positions. It's strictly for operating costs incurred during that 6-month period. So eligible costs include, but are not limited to, rent, mortgage costs, rent or lease of equipment and machinery, salaries, benefits, property taxes, cleaning supplies, additional safety measures, bank interest charges, office supplies, vehicle operating expenses, professional fees, insurance, and other fixed overhead costs. So ineligible costs include land and building acquisitions, goodwill, entertainment expenses, salary bonuses, and dividend payments, allowance for interest on invested capital, bonds, debentures, and other debts, losses on investment, bad debts, refinancing of existing debts, amortization of or depreciation of assets, federal and provincial income taxes, GST taxes or surtaxes, and provisions for contingencies, lobbying activities or commissions, donations, dues, and membership fees. As far as applicants go and applications, what the eligibility criteria is: 1 application per business. You must be incorporated or a cooperative. You must be located or operating in Northern Ontario. Employ between 1 and 499 individuals on a full-time basis in Canada. You must be negatively impacted by COVID-19 circumstances. Your business must be included in any of the following industry sectors: agri-food, forestry, health and life sciences, mining supply and services, manufacturing, tourism, information and communications technology. There may be some exception to that if the business is of major significance to the community. So, you know, an example probably is that you're in a remote rural community and you're the only grocery store there. We may consider assisting, but because normally we would not do retail or service or professional services, so forth, that kind of thing. But you can always, give us a call and check on that, because these are, the target sectors are quite broad. I don't have any specific information on all the types of businesses that are captured under those different sectors. So just to be sure, you might want to give us a call. This funding does not replace other COVID programs, and you will be asked on the application if you've applied, been rejected, aren't eligible, or have received funding from the other programs. This information will be used to determine eligibility and eligible costs. So, for example, if you've received money through the wage subsidy program, FedNAR will not consider salaries as an eligible cost for the funds. If you have received a 25% forgiveness on a COVID loan program from another COVID loan program provider, you will not be eligible for forgiveness on the FedNAR loan. Basically, what we're saying is no double dipping on the same eligible cost. You must attest in the application to the need for the funding and any of the COVID programs you have applied to and the status, and any programs for which you were ineligible. You must provide 2 years of financial statements, a list of your costs for that 6-month period, and your plans for recovery. This is basically a one application, one-step process. The application's online through the FedNAR website. Repayment of the loan can be made in installments over a 5-year period with no interest or security taken. The loan must be repaid by December 31st, 2025. We are, going to continue taking applications, I think for at least up through September or longer, depending on what the budget situation is by then, how many applications we've received. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now or call me later at another time at 705-941-2065. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's great. Thank you, Pam. That was great information there. And does anybody have any questions at this time? Actually, one just came up through the chat, Pam. If received 40,000 federal loan through the banks, would an application be rejected automatically for that program from FedNAR?
No.
Okay, great. Now, maybe another question, Pam, what is the estimated turnaround time for approvals? Do you have a sense of that at this time?
Well, we have expedited our process, so we're hoping to, it's hard to say, but I would say, around the 2 weeks or so. Okay. Is what we're shooting for. So we are trying to move these through very fast.
Perfect. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And maybe perhaps what we can do is have Dan talk about his program, because I know these programs are kind of in tandem. So maybe Dan will let you talk about your program, and then again, open it up for questions if there's questions between the FedNAR and the CDC programs here.
Okay, I'll carry on where Pam left off. So this is under that title, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. So the CFDCs, and then some of this information has not been finalized yet, but I'm going to give you what I have right now. We do have a call this afternoon with FedNor to hopefully button all of this down. But what I do know is that we can make loans up to $40,000. Now, I was asking AWIC for some data on Sault Ste. Marie area businesses. So as I've mentioned in the past, the CDC targets small and micro industries. So pretty much, 90% of our businesses in the area, that was a pretty good guess, have less than 10 employees. So this is where the CDC generally is active. We have some larger clients for sure, but generally that's our area. In terms of the focus of this, as the information, I think this is really good, is to SMEs targeted towards Main Street. So this is our smaller businesses, retail shops, restaurants, corner stores, and as Pam mentioned, businesses of strategic importance to the community. So in my older days when I was working in places like Wawa and White River and Dubreuilville and Chapleau, there was an important grocery store, there was an important gas station. It was those businesses were very critical to those communities. So I'm very happy to see that. But certainly in Sault Ste. Marie, we have many retail shops and restaurants and the like. So to give you that, that's kind of where we're targeting this at. Now, because there are so many businesses, we may cap our support to $25,000 because there's my nearest count is there's something like 1,300 businesses with employees and another, 3,000 with employees, another 13,000 without. So there's a lot of small businesses there. So going forward, the terms of those loans is they would be interest free, so zero interest until December 31st, 2022. There's no principal payments also until December 31st, 2022. Obviously, that's predicated on the idea that we will be coming out of this crisis at a later date, of which nobody knows at the moment. But I think that particular structure should give everybody a little bit of confidence that we should be back on our feet when these payments come into play. The repayments, I'm sorry. Now, you can make a voluntary payment before that. There's no penalty for prepayments. Up to 25% of this loan, $10,000 maximum, is forgivable if the loan balance is paid by December 31st, 2022. And then at that point, any unpaid balance that we're suggesting will be converted to a term loan at up to 5%. So it's way off in the distance, but that's how we'll probably work with our clients at that point in time. And they should be paid off in full by December 31st, 2025. Security involved, there is no security involved for these particular loans. It'll just be a promissory note that we'll be looking for. Similar to what Pam had mentioned, the applicant has attempted to access the other relief support programs and for different reasons would be deemed ineligible. And I would have to defer to Nevin on that. I think sometimes how many years you've been in business and your payroll threshold, these are some things that might come into play. But again, I'll defer to something he can comment better than me when he speaks. So little things, and this will be put on our website and Facebook, so follow us very shortly when it's all confirmed. I'm giving you a lot of information, I realize that. The business should be deemed as viable as of March 1st, 2020, so we'll be looking for some financial statements, even internal financial statements. This should be in existence before March 1st, 2020, and then obviously demonstrate that they were adversely affected by the COVID-19. So, that we're going to put a condensed application together. The turnaround time on those should be within 1 week, I'm going to say, and probably some people on my staff are raising their eyebrows right now, but that's what we're going to shoot for. And people should, as soon as we already are starting to build a list of people that are coming to us, and I think that they referred through the announcements and also through our member of parliament, Mr. Sheehan. So these kind of things have created some level of awareness. So certainly contact us as soon as you can. Certainly our normal loans, we're still just as to carry on. We've given zero interest and zero payments for our existing clients. We're looking at new loans, so we're still in business for new activities, where we're looking at things like 0% for 6 months and then carrying forward. It may be able to extend that to a year. So we're looking at those decisions this afternoon. And just as on a brighter note, we're looking at under our Head Start banner, Head Start in Business, trying to start a little project for youth 18 to 29. And this, given the situation and these young people with their talents, need to maybe look at other opportunities for employment, their skills and their talents. So we're looking at starting something like that in the very near future, probably capped out at about $50,000 just as a start. So those are some of the things that are happening, but specifically to the relief project, I'll be able to nail all of this down hopefully at the end of the day. But that's what I've got to share with you today.
Great, thanks, Dan, and we appreciate it's kind of real time recent announcement, and we appreciate you providing the update, both you and Pam. We did have one question come in on the chat. I'm not sure if you can answer this yet. It was, if a company gets this loan but needs to add more debt from another provider, does this debt sit behind new debt in terms of priority?
Yeah, it could. Well, that's something that we negotiate all the time and under normal circumstances. And I would say this to the person asking is, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that the situation works for them. So if that means going, in a different position or behind the other lender, then sure.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Pam or Dan on these two new programs that they've just discussed?
Tom, it's John Fabrero, Tom. Just a point of clarification for Pam, question for Pam. You indicated, Pam, if I understood correct, I just want to make sure the businesses on the line have a clear understanding. You indicated that you're avoiding double dipping. You indicated that some of the eligible costs over and above may apply, but it specifically states in terms of eligibility that if you receive any support whatsoever from the government of Canada, you are not eligible. So is that a fair statement?
No, I mean, because you can be getting the wage subsidy and still be eligible.
Okay, because that's, and the only reason I'm pointing that out is if a business goes onto the website and it says directly in bold that if you received wage subsidy and or any government of Canada COVID business credit support programs and lists a few, you are not eligible to apply. I just want clarification because there were some businesses that have approached me and that had received other federal funding, and basically I indicated to them based on the eligibility criteria on the website that they are not eligible. So can you just provide
if they're eligible, if they're eligible for both the wage subsidy and the CEBA, 40,000, then no, they're not eligible. But if you're eligible for one or ineligible for either of those, then you're still okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I mean, we look at all the costs that you're incurring, right? So if you are getting the wage subsidy, then we wouldn't include salary and benefits in what we cover.
Fair. Thank you. That's great clarification. I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thanks, John and Pam. Does anybody have any other questions at this time for Pam or Dan? Okay. At this time, we're going to turn it over to Nevin Bukonjic of our Economic Development Team, and he's going to provide an update on the Canada Emergency Business Account and some of the other programs, because there have been some changes made and some updates. So just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. So Nevin, would you be able to unmute and take control here? And Nevin, I know I saw your name earlier, so I think you're on the call. We can't hear you yet. Okay, maybe we'll just move on to the next speaker while Nevin sorts out the microphone issue. Jonathan Coleman, are you on the line? Do you want to talk about the AWIC survey, please?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks again for hosting this call. So we wanted to do a second survey of businesses and employers in Sault Ste. Marie to make sure we're keeping on track or on top of, I guess, the impacts of the COVID-19 lockdown, and then also the staged reopening of businesses in the Soo. So we did a survey in April. So this is basically our follow-up survey. So we have a number of the same questions for employers, and we want employers to fill out this survey as well, even if they filled out the April survey. And it's for us to kind of get a rolling look at the impacts on them. So there are a number of the same questions about the impacts to their business, as well as the impacts to their level of employment, to their workforce. And then we've added additional questions around the programs. So what programs employers are using, and what feedback they might have on those programs. So sort of like what's working, what's not working. And obviously we want to see what the uptake is on those programs locally. And then finally, there's some questions around the reopening of the economy. So obviously we're in stage 1 of reopening. So we want to make sure that employers have the information they need. They understand the information, and then also what challenges they might be facing in reopening. So, whether that's meeting the guidelines, or they might have staffing issues, or even the costs around, reopening. So again, this is our second survey. The goal here is to get information directly from employers, get it quickly, and then share it, with all the stakeholders that are helping to address these issues. So we have the survey is completed. We have it up on AWIC's site right now. We'll get it up on the city's business support page, and we'll do a release, but we'll be getting this survey out and to employers in the coming days and early next week. And same thing, I can't thank employers enough for taking the time to fill this out, but it really does help fill in a lot of the information on what these impacts are on a citywide level, so that we can hopefully address these issues and make sure that people aren't falling through the gaps and things like that in terms of getting the support they need. So that's look for the survey, as I said, in the coming days.
And Jonathan, we just had one question come through on the chat there. What is the deadline to complete the survey?
Well, we tend to do these in about a week. So if we widely get it out next week, then we'd have it up for like a week. So I would say I don't have a calendar up. I don't even know what day it is actually, but we'd probably run it until like 7 days or so. Most people complete the survey after it's announced. So I would say June 1st at the latest would be our closing date.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Much appreciated. And definitely, we encourage everyone to fill out that survey. As Jonathan said, it is an important data point for the community and helps us. And also, we have questions on there to let us know if you are falling through the cracks. Now, we've heard from FedNor and the CDC this morning that there are some new funding programs there. So those are definitely things for people to investigate. But on that, I also want to just make sure people were aware if they do feel like they're falling through the cracks, we do have a business hotline, 705-574-1230, and definitely feel free to call us, and our economic development staff can help you and navigate through these times. We'll see if Nevin was able to dial back into the line, and if he can provide the update on the Canada Emergency Business Account at this time. Nevin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Great. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Not sure what the problem was. Yeah, I have just a couple minor updates to 3 of the programs. So the Canada Emergency Business Account, that's the up to $40,000 interest-free loan. The government has announced an expansion to the eligibility. So they want to allow more owner-operated small businesses to be able to participate. So the program will now be available to a greater number of businesses that are sole proprietors, receiving income directly from their businesses. Businesses that rely on contractors and family-owned corporations that pay their employees through dividends rather than payroll. So they've been listening to the input from companies and businesses that haven't been able to access this, and they've made some changes. So to qualify under the expanded eligibility, applicants with payrolls lower than $20,000 would need a business operating account at a participating bank or financial institution, so essentially a business bank account. They would require a CRA business number and to have filed their 2018 and 2019 taxes. And they must have eligible non-deferrable expenses between $40,000 and $1.5 million, things like rent, property taxes, utilities, insurance, and other non-deferrable expenses. These expenses will be subject to verification and audit by the government, and the funding will be delivered directly by the financial institution. We're still waiting for the launch date. They're saying give them a few more days to hear about the final details and criteria as well as the launch date. And the government continues to work on solutions to help business owners that operate through personal bank accounts. This has been a huge issue on every teleconference I've been on. Many businesses operate their business using their personal account, in some cases unbeknownst to them until now, where they require the business account. So the government's working on that issue as well as working on the fact if you have not filed a return yet. So for new businesses that haven't filed a tax return. So they're working on that sort of piece as well. So stay tuned. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, so that was providing up to 75% of wages. That has been extended from June to August 29th, so that's good news, another 3 months. And the government is currently considering broadening eligibility on this program as well, amending some of the certain calculations and possibly changing the 30% revenue decline threshold. So as you recall, businesses accessing the wage subsidy had to show 15% decline in March and 30% declines in April and May. So the government may lower that threshold, so stay tuned. And finally, the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. This is the program that would lower or reduce the small business rent by 75% for April, May, and June. So this program will become operational May 25th. So on that date, the eligible landlords and property owners can apply to this program. And one new point here is the small property owners do not have to hold a mortgage on the property. That was one of the initial conditions, but this has been dropped. So those are the updates to those 3 programs.
Great, thanks, Nevin. Much appreciated. So there are being continue to be tweaks made to these funding programs, as you've just heard, and definitely feel free to contact us or contact your financial institution related to these updates to make sure you're able to take advantage of these programs. Are there any questions that anybody has at this time? Okay, maybe we'll switch. I see Rory Ring has joined the line. Rory, did you want to provide an update from the chamber?
There we go. Figured it out. You can hear me okay?
We can, thanks.
Excellent. Well, you know, it's great to hear those updates from Nevin, because it really shows that the Chamber network, who's been working very hard for these changes, is starting to have some impact. So we continue to work hard to ensure that when they fine tune the rental relief, that it will be attractive, you know, for the landlords to participate. There's been some complications in that and dealing between the 2 levels of government, but both the Canadian Chamber and the Ontario Chamber reaching out into networks like ours that are local and passing on to them some of the challenges being faced by our business community. So it's great to see a lot of those cracks are being filled. What I'd like to do is just turn some attention to a resource site, which is the Canadian Business Resilience Network. They've issued out a reopening toolkit for the business community, and there's some great resources there to be had. You know, covering update your operations plan, update your health and safety plan, communicate those plans and procedures to your staff, customers, and suppliers. That is a critical point. Know how to access any required PPE. We have great suppliers here locally that are providing easy access to a lot of these materials. You know, Jim Mills at Health Gear. You've got Maker North with the shields, and a number of glass suppliers like Employees Glass that are providing plexiglass for cashier and providing protective barrier between your customers and your staff members. Also continuing to access the government financial supports, which Nevin has reviewed. Understand the social services such as daycare and, you know, what's available to you and to your staff. That again is going to be a critical issue around onboarding employees, and also giving your consumers, your customers, the confidence that they need to return and service your business. And then to be aware of the wide variety of additional supports, resources, and guides that are available. It's an excellent resource. It also links you to a rapid response platform, so that if you're a company providing PPE or looking to acquire PPE, you can go on this rapid response platform and source hand sanitizers, surgical masks, N95s, you know, and that's if you're requiring some significant volume. But first, I'd say, you know, make sure you're going to your local businesses and seeing how they can supply you with the materials that are required. You know, so it's a great resource center. Both the EDC's got resources and toolkits, ourselves, the Chamber of Commerce, ssmcoc.com. You'll find links to many of the resources, and I'll attach here in the chat box the link to this toolkit from the Canadian Business Resilience Network. I do, you know, there's great resources there that's being put together from small to large business, and every bit of information that you can arm yourself with is going to help you reopen in a safe and confident way.
That's great. Thanks, Rory. Appreciate that. And yeah, on those lines, we did put together a guide, our economic development staff, and we were going to have John Fabrero just give a quick overview of that guide for businesses on the line. John, are you available to unmute and touch on that business reference guide?
Yes, Tom, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. So for the businesses out there, what you've seen to date with what the city is pushing forward is sort of like a step program we started the website, the hotline, went over to the Sue Together website and getting the businesses all together. And then we thought that it was very imperative to look at a reopening businesses the smart, safe, and responsible way. We felt that there's so much information out there for businesses, and I could appreciate the different websites that you're going to try to get something that really fits your organization. So what we decided to do is put together this reference guide. And in this reference guide, basically, it's almost like a one-stop shop sort of document that gives you starts off with some general protocols. And what's really, really important that we've been hearing in stage one of the reopening is really look at the cleaning and disinfection of your business before you even open. So there's plenty of protocols that are on there that has come from the government websites that'll help you on that. Employee preventative measures is another aspect. And very, very importantly is communicating with your employees. Whatever policies and procedures, as Rory alluded to, that you're putting together, it's important that your employees really understand that, and there's some information on that. Again, preparing your space prior to reopening, and again, the appropriate use of PPE. One of the important protocols that's on there that's coming from the government is really taking care of your mental health. This is something that's of great concern by the government for all the businesses and their employees, because, with changes in the new norm, anxiety builds and whatnot. And, mental health is very important. So we put some information on there on the mental health side of things. And then we touched upon the different sectors, such as agriculture, animal care services, childcare, construction, and the list goes on. I suggest you look at that document. Again, it's a reference guide, one-stop shop. It's a revolving document. As the websites and the government changes, it will automatically change on this website when you click on the links. And more importantly, another important aspect, I should say, is when you look at the respective sectors, the government has come out with posters that they hope that you can download and post those within your organization. So we felt that that's incredibly important, and we've included that also. And then there's other work site signage that's also as an appendix to the document. So take a look at the document. Like I said, it's a revolving document. It's to help our local businesses. It's a step program that we're doing to help these businesses from the start of this COVID, when it was announced, to where we're at today. And we'll continue to explore other avenues to help the businesses as much as possible. So again, it's on the city website. It's also on our city website, and it's on the Sue Together. And the other thing too is I'd just like to take this opportunity, Tom, to thank our staff through the City Economic Development team that worked on this, and also the Innovation Center for their support and their work on this document too. That's all I have. Great.
Thanks, Sean. Much appreciated. Okay. At this time, just going to open up the line. If there are any other stakeholders on the line that would like to provide an update to the business community, or if we have businesses that have questions or concerns, if you would like to put those forward now, we're just open up the lines.
Hi, Tom. It's Lori from the BDC. How are you?
Very good. How are you doing, Lori?
Good, thank you. Just to add to John's comments earlier, is if some people, and so the resources study, and I've looked at it and it's great. If some businesses out there are finding that it's really overwhelming, and or maybe they're a specific industry and might need a little bit more assistance, BDC has, with our consulting arm of the BDC, we have specific consultants that can come in and help assist on what the reopening would look like, and how to make sure that their clients are safe and that their employees are safe. So So it's just another reference if needed.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate that. All right. Any other questions or updates from our community here?
Hey, Tom, it's Dan Hollingsworth here. Just a quick comment with respect to those comments made earlier by Rory with respect to personal protective equipment. The province did release a supplier directory this past week that has a variety of suppliers. If you can't find them locally, we certainly encourage any business that's looking for these types of products and services to source them locally. But they do have a supplier directory that covers eye protection, counter guards, gowns, coveralls, masks, sanitization, gloves, and digital technologies and apps. If there are any companies locally that would like to get into that supply chain, you can register right on the Ontario website, and I'll pop up the URL for that in a couple moments here. But anyhow, there's another source to find that type of equipment for safe reopening as we start to see the staging of reopening of businesses here in Ontario.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Much appreciated. Okay, if there's no other questions at this time, again, I want to thank everyone for participating today. Thank you to all the folks that provided updates, and FedNor and the CDC with the new funding programs that have been made available. Some important new resources there. And definitely we wish everyone the best. Call our hotline if you have any questions or you need help in navigating the programs or you feel like you're falling through the cracks. We have a team that's ready to assist. And definitely stay safe out there. We want to remind everyone that we are still under the Emergency Declaration Act, and we do have community spread in Sault Ste. Marie, so it's important that people remain vigilant and do all they can at this time to help us to reduce the spread of this COVID-19. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate you calling in today, and stay safe.